Hey guys, House and One back at it once again with a brand new video for you, and welcome to episode 20 of Formula 1 2013, the online racer, multiplayer online gameplay featuring real-world Formula 1 topics worth talking about. Thank you all, by the way, as well, for all the support, and since this series has come back, it's done very, very well. I'm very glad to hear you guys are still loving the opinionated content. And yeah, 20 episodes in. We had 20 for last year's game, and we still got a month until 2014 comes out. So awesome. Hopefully there'll be a couple more episodes between now and F1 2014's release. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about broadcasting in Formula 1 for this episode. I gave you guys the power to choose whether you wanted me to talk about broadcasting or whether you wanted me to talk about F1 being a little bit out of touch in terms of the grand scheme of things. I'll save that one for next week, but in this one I want to talk a little bit about broadcasting, and this is something that means a lot to me because for those who know me well, I'm currently in university right now studying broadcast journalism. You may have noticed that Into the Barrier, Scott, as we all know and love, is also he's taking some time off from the community to study broadcast journalism as well. So you know, we broadcasters are stepping up together. So yeah, overall, it's something that means a lot to me, and when you are trying to get a degree in broadcasting, you notice these little things a little bit more than say the average person does, and you know, it's something that I think is worth talking about because it's interesting to me. And a lot of people have been accusing Sky, the main provider of Formula 1 in this country, of being biased, and I'm going to debate in this video whether I think that's a good thing or not. Because let's be honest, and let's not beat around the bush here, media is important. It's very, very important. It warps people's perceptions. It gives people a message that they may not even entirely want to hear, but it's incredibly influential. So should a Formula 1 broadcaster, or should a sportscaster in general be biased? And it's an interesting one because, let's be honest here, Sky have a tendency of brown-nosing, shall we speak, Lewis Hamilton. And to a degree I understand why. This is the first season since 2010, I would say, where Lewis Hamilton was a true title contender. Even though in 2010 he was always more of an outside bet than a Webber, Alonso, or Vettel was the outside shot. Hamilton was the Hail Mary miracle. Ever since then, he's not really been a title contender. I mean, 2012 he was unlucky, but that's just racing. Sometimes he wasn't really in contention for the second half of that season. It was between Vettel and Alonso for the most part. But let's be honest, there is a lot of bias coming out of Sky and towards Lewis Hamilton. Now, obviously, Sky is a British broadcasting company, and Lewis Hamilton obviously is Formula 1's best British driver, and that kind of goes without saying, and he has been Britain's best Formula 1 driver since 2009 at least. But is that right? And there's more than enough examples of this. Like, for example, I've seen Simon Lazenby refer. Simon Lazenby, by the way, is Sky F1's leading anchor, like Jake Humphrey does for the BBC before he sold his soul to the devil and became an idiot on BT Sport. But for the most part, it's one of those things where like Simon Lazenby has said, like, our Lewis while on the air, like on Sky, and I'm like, is that really the way you want to go? And they've accused Rosberg of stirring the pot for the title feud on purpose on numerous occasions. Johnny Herbert is definitely a spinner. He will try and make Rosberg out to be public enemy number one whenever he gets an opportunity. Like, for example, at Monaco, he immediately thought Rosberg did it on purpose. And in Austria, they didn't really want to talk about the race itself. They talked about Hamilton getting apparently shafted in the pit stops, which is never a consistent thing. It's a human element, and you can't measure things like that. Sometimes one guy's just going to have better pit stops. So these guys like to dig for stories and basically try to fluff Hamilton to make him look as good as possible. Even in incidents where things weren't entirely, the other guy's fault. Like in Germany, where he made contact on two separate passes on people. I think it was Raikkonen and I think Jenson Button in Germany. Kind of got away with it. Even Martin Brundle was like on the fence saying, well, I've never seen a driver play chicken with his front wing like Hamilton does. So there's definitely proponents of that on Sky, and David Croft is another one, their lead commentator as well, has had tendencies to slip up and basically overhype Hamilton to a degree. I remember the blatant one at Austria when he was trying to pass Bottas on the straights in Austria, and he was like half a second ahead, like 10 car lengths away, and it's like, oh, can Hamilton pass him into turn 2? And I'm like, what? No way! It's ridiculous. So, a lot of people have fallen for the Hamilton hype this year as a result of the fact he's actually in a front-running position to win the championship, and has done for the first time in maybe 5 years. So, to a degree, I understand it. And, like I said, it's a British company, so, to a degree, they're going to lean a little bit that way. But is that the right thing to do? And it's a bit of a grating thing on me, because one of the first things I was taught as a journalist, one of the main ethical quandaries of being a journalist, is that you have to be unbiased. You've got to be objective and present an objective, viewpoint when you're on TV. And these guys are all broadcasters and journalists. Like, Lazenby goes on podcasts before. He's a podcaster on on the website I'm writing for now, F1 Update. Guys like Martin Brundle is a broadcaster and a journalist. He writes blogs for Sky Sports F1's website after every Grand Prix. And many other of those guys on the team are. Natalie Pinkham, who flirts with all the drivers, which is never a good thing either. There's elements of that across the board, and I've always said broadcasters and journalists should have a moral responsibility to be objective. But the problem is these guys work for a business, and not just any business, but a multi-billion pound business and industry, where the only thing that really matters in terms of the media to these guys is to get as many viewers as possible. And if that means fluffing up the Brits, then they'll probably more likely do that. I mean, look how much airtime Max Chilton gets on Sky, despite the fact he's probably the least successful driver on the grid right now. Pound for pound in terms of ability and prestige and profile, Chilton's probably right at the bottom alongside Marcus Ericsson. Yet he gets a fair chunk of airtime on Sky, mainly because of his nationality. If Max Chilton was a German, no one would give a shit about him. It's one of those things. And I'm not saying Sky is the only innocent party in this. The BBC have had minor tendencies here and there to do it as well, but it's nowhere near as frequent, for one. Two, I like the fact they focus on other drivers' segments now and again, like, for example, when Vettel and Webber both hit the 200 club for race starts, they interviewed each other, which I thought was a really good feature. They did features on Schumacher, which were hilarious, Jenson Button as well. So I'd like to think the BBC are a little bit more impartial, and they have to be. They're owned by the government. They're owned and ran by the British government, as opposed to Sky, which is a private business and can technically say whatever the hell they want. The BBC have at least some kind of jurisdiction and responsibility not to present a biased view, which is a good thing. And if you want to go back a little bit further, when ITV because ITV was another private company, and they had the rights for Formula 1, I think, from 1992 through to 2008. And towards the end of their time on TV, they started getting more and more biased as well. I think one of the big ones was Jenson Button when he won his first Grand Prix at Hungary. I can't quite remember the year. I think it was 2005. I'm not 100% sure on that, but someone will correct me in the comments, because you always do. But Button's first win in Hungary, James Allen absolutely lost his damn mind. Like, Jenson Button wins! Get in there! Like, his inner fanboy just screamed out all over the place. It was incredible. But I think the rise to fame of Lewis Hamilton in 2007 and 2008 started to sway ITV's perspective a little bit. And again, I can understand why, because if you look at the time, Hamilton came in as a complete hotshot. Like, Hamilton came in, led the World Championship for a good chunk of time, was only 1 point off winning the thing in his rookie season, and he beat Fernando Alonso pound for pound on countback in the same car, the guy who had just won 2 consecutive World Championships. So maybe ITV had a little bit of a right to be excited over Hamilton, who was a stud prospect, and I know a lot of British fans were. And I'm sure these racing journalists and broadcasters are fans too. And I like them injecting a little bit of personality here and there, because a lot of us behind the screens are cheering for them too. And that's not a bad thing. But I think you've got to know where the line is. Trust me, some of the commentary James Allen was coming out with Lewis Hamilton back in 07 and 08 and the constant focus on him made it sound like he was a direct disciple of Ayrton Senna, which is a different debate entirely, but it was a little bit ridiculous. So, is it alright? Should broadcasters be impartial? I don't know, is the honest answer to that question. Because, ultimately, they're not doing it for us, they're doing it to get viewers in. And if viewers are coming in, then that's on us to do something about it. Who cares? They've already got their TV money. So, if you don't like what you're hearing, you're going to have to change the channel, or watch on the internet, and don't give these people your TV revenue or TV license money, because they're not going to stop doing this. And British drivers doing well is successful for everybody. It's great for the journalists on Fleet Street because the media wants to create its own story more often than not. In Germany, nobody talked about Rosberg winning or Bottas's very, very, very brilliant best driver of his career in second place. They talked about Hamilton who came through from 20th to 3rd because it told a better story. Same thing happened again in Hungary, the issue of team orders rather than Daniel Ricciardo's outstanding win. So, the media don't care about us and their obligation to us. They care about selling their papers, getting their click views, making their TV money, and trying to tell us as enlightening a story as possible to get people like us to listen. But before I go, I'd love to hear your take on the situation. Should broadcasters be biased? Should they be down the middle? And if you're not in the United Kingdom, what's your coverage like? I know NBC has Will Buxton in the United States, the same guys that are behind Drive as well. I know a lot of people in Germany, in Spain, etc. And I'd love to hear you guys' take on it as well. Is it the same over there? Are the Germans obsessed with guys like Vettel, Rosberg, Hülkenberg, Sutil? Are the Spanish obsessed with Alonso? I'd love to hear it. But until then, I've been Harrison. I want to thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.